And good morning. Welcome to Life Hacks for Lasting Love. My name's Steve. This is my beautiful wife, Lyn. We're back again. Welcome to those who've seen us before, and welcome to the first time if this happens to be the first time for you. Today, we've got a difficult topic for us, and a remarkably common topic that we're only really becoming aware of how common this terrible thing is out there amongst the women in our society. The topic is endometriosis.
So, as a sufferer of endometriosis and just being aware now that 10% of women have endometriosis, I just want to talk a little bit about that and the suffering and the confusion and the hurt that I had for years, and the misconception as well that, I just thought that all periods were meant to be painful, that everybody that time of month, life felt like there was a knife in your stomach, that it was a struggle to get out of bed even because of the pain. And, it was a really hard time, and it was so silent. And, 20 years ago, we certainly didn't understand it. We didn't talk about it. So I used to think, am I going mad? Am I just a hypochondriac? I was a registered nurse myself, and, you sort of really didn't even understand what endometriosis was. And, unfortunately, I had been diagnosed at a very young age with polycystic ovaries as well. So for us, we tried to start having our family as soon as we got married, just on the advice of our gynecologists, that how important it was to try and have children earlier.
Which I thought was a fabulous idea.
Luckily, we'd got married earlier, and that was still a journey. It was a couple of years of trying. We ended up going back then, and we're now talking 30 years ago, trying Clomid, which was a type of fertility drug. Sorry. And, it was just the roller coaster ride of it as well. The roller coaster ride of hoping this month you might be pregnant, and then being disappointed that month when you weren't. And I do know for us that after a few months...
Not for lack of trying.
After a few months of being on the drugs, I just actually needed a break. I was tired of the roller coaster ride of my emotions, of the hormones. And it was just a really, really hard time. And, it was really wonderful at that time. Soon afterwards, we actually did fall pregnant, and, we had 2 children, beautiful children, and it was lovely. And then basically the endometriosis came back as well with
a vengeance.
With a vengeance. And for the next couple of years, 4 years, we tried to have some more children, and finally we're able to have our next 2 children. But it's a
finally got the one I wanted. She's the one behind the camera right now. That's why we stopped at 4. She's my favourite. She knows.
This is one of the reasons why I married him, because he makes me laugh, and he'll tell each and every one of our kids that they're the favourite. Number 1 son is his favourite because he's number 1. And, each child has their own different versions of why they're the favourite.
You should have been there the day that they all figured out that they were all being told that they were the favourite. Behind the others' backs, it was hysterical.
And so we've been really blessed to be able to go on and have 4 children. And, you'd like to think that the problems with the endometriosis stopped then, but they really didn't. While we're still in that stage of our lives where we're still having our periods and things like that, the endometriosis continued to grow to the point that probably about 10 years ago now, it got to the stage where I actually had to have a series of operations. I ended up with 7 operations in 2 years.
We were both going to university at the time, doing our Masters in Business degrees.
And it just became debilitating. The endometriosis had gone into other aspects of my body, into the bowel, into other areas, up onto the diaphragm. And the pain, I could no longer actually bear the pain at that time of month. I couldn't even stand up.
Damn, it's hard to watch your girl going through this, I tell you.
And, the rest of the month you're doing well, you're dynamic, and then it just takes you out for the count. And so it was a time where I actually had to stop, and, every time you'd hope this operation was enough. This operation would stop it, and it would just keep coming back. And it's now been 7 years since my last operation, which is great. And for me, and because we'd actually finished our family, it was moving myself into surgical menopause. which in itself has been hard and caused some problems. But I think, it's not an easy time. The endometriosis does affect your sexuality as well, because you know what? Everything's painful. There's things growing, and there's, you know, lesions basically inside of you that just make life really hard. And I remember one of the operations where they looked, and the endometriosis had, as I said, had gone onto the diaphragm and the bowel, and I actually had to have punch biopsies, and I went into the operation not knowing if they'd have to actually have a colostomy bag, whether they could get it out without making the bowel have a rest for a month. And praise God, or it was great in that they were able to do it just through a punch biopsy. But it also,
there was one time when she came home and she'd been ripped from hip to hip by the surgeon. Seriously, hip to hip. A female surgeon. You'd think, who would do that to another woman? But anyway, it was pretty painful and pretty ordinary.
But that's just how bad the endometriosis was for me. And I suppose because we've all been so silent about it, we haven't talked about it, and it's great that we are now, and there's society, organisations that are occurring. But, this is something I suffered with for 30 odd years. And, 7 years ago was the time that I ended up having to have all those operations. I remember the most hardest one, and the one that we didn't talk about a lot, but for me and as a woman, the endometriosis had actually gone into my vagina as well. And so they actually had to cut the tip of my vagina out. They'd already done the full hysterectomy, and I just remember thinking, is that it? Have I finished as a woman? Will I ever be able to have sex again? What does that mean for our relationship? What does that mean for my husband? And I was so frightened. I was so scared. And
our daughter behind the camera didn't know this. She's got this horrified look on her face. It's okay. We got through it.
But I just remember just feeling so alone and thinking, how often does this happen for so many other women, and how often are we so silent about this? And I remember the first time sort of that time when you get that clear that it's okay to try to make love again, and just feeling so scared, but feeling so safe with my husband, because that's one thing we have had. And by this stage we'd been married 25 years, I think.
Bloody long time.
And but just feeling safe to just explore and to see if it was going to be okay, and was it still possible? And it was. But the first few times it was scary, and Steve was really patient, and we got there. And so I just really want to say to all the other women out there that I know that this might be a case for you as well, that it's okay.
You're not alone.
You're not alone.
10% of the women out there have this. When you work that out on the population, that's an awful lot of women with this terrible disease. So you're not alone. What we want to do here is encourage you to talk about it. Talk with your hubby, get your man to have to listen to this, explain if this is what's happening to you. Talk to him about this. Don't let this be a dead topic. Don't let this be something that you hide under the carpets. Don't let this be something you're embarrassed about. It's not your fault. It's not anyone's fault. It's just life. This is how it works.
And go to the gynecologist earlier. I didn't, and that's why it spread so much. It's like a weed growing in your garden. You've just got to get the right Roundup to actually kill it before it takes over.
Not allowed to say Roundup anymore.
Oh, right, weed killer then. Please go. I ignored it until to the point where I couldn't actually get up out of a chair without bending over in pain at that time of the month, and it had actually spread so far. So please, go early, get whatever your gynecologist says, get the treatment so that it doesn't spread into those other areas. You don't need them in those other areas, and so you don't have to have those series of operations that I did. I know that the government's going to get behind endometriosis. There's more money being spent on research, and eventually we'll know what's happening. But, for the time being, hang in there. Please
talk about it.
Talk about it
with each other.
And if you've got painful periods, go to your doctors. They're not, I didn't know this, but do you know what? They're not meant to be painful.
And I'm pretty sure there's support groups out there. Yeah, your periods aren't meant to be painful. It's not the way we were designed. Well, girls were designed.
But I didn't know that. Because for me, I'd always had it. So, so today we really wanted to talk about that, and because it is an issue. So for the 10% of women out there, I feel for you. I understand. And
for your men, I feel for you. No, I know what you're going through, even if you're not quite sure of it yourself. So.
Yeah, and if you want to just shoot us a line, whatever, I'm more than happy to talk more to you on that particular issue, because I think it's time we stopped being silenced about this and we actually started talking more openly.
All right. Thanks for listening. Hope that worked for everybody. If that just shuddered, that was our baby kicking the camera. And thanks for coming along.
Just reminding you,
See you later.
You can have children. The camera just shook.